And I just wanted to begin with the new reporting we have, adding on your reporting. This is today from The Guardian. You revealed the 7.5-hour gap in the White House phone logs on January 6th. And The Guardian is reporting that at least one call that should have been on those logs was made to Senator Mike Lee. And that call came through on Mike Lee's phone the way a call comes through when it's officially coming from a White House phone, the 202-395-000 identifier. What do you make of that? That indicates that there was at least one phone call, if that's true, that should have been on those White House logs and is not on those White House logs.
Well, there are a number of calls that should have been, for instance, conversation. I mean, there's so many, you can't keep track of it all. And this astonishing 7-hour and 37-minute gap, you and I go back to the 1970s in Watergate. It was only an 18.5-minute gap. And it's astonishing, and it's not believable because Trump is making calls that day. Now, this is January 6th, the day of the insurrection. I think arguably the most important day in the Trump presidency, and he's making 10 calls in the morning, then this gap of 7 hours and 37 minutes, and then he makes a dozen calls in the evening. So what happened? And there are records and there are accounts of people that that he was talking to. So clearly it's incomplete. As one lawmaker said to Robert Costa, my co-author, and from Peril, the book we did, and on this report said it looks like a possible cover-up because this is not an accidental time in Trump history or in American history because it's the 7.5 hours during the violence of the insurrection itself.
Bob, what does it feel like to you with all your experience in covering these kinds of stories? And I say these kinds of stories, there have only been a couple in our history, the Nixon story and now this Trump story. I mean, compare your discovery of this 7.5-hour gap to when you discovered there was an 18-minute gap on the Nixon tapes. How did you feel in those two moments?
The feeling. Well, you feel that, trying to be a reporter and get more information, make sure you have confirmed the accuracy of it, and then asking the question that always lingers, what does this mean? And in the case of Nixon, if you recall, Rosemary Woods, his secretary, said she accidentally erased it, and there is a famous picture of her stretching to reach, I guess, the pedal on her desk for erasing the Nixon tapes, and a phone call or something else in the office. So this just sometimes things don't make sense. And one of, I think, the really interesting points in all of this is that if you think about this country for a moment, and I happened to be reading some Barbara Tuchman essays recently. My wife Elsa said, you ought to look at this. And Barbara Tuchman in 1976 wrote an essay in which she said what's unique about America is it is a country founded on an idea. And that idea is democracy. And what you have in all of this is, it's a crime to subvert a lawful function of the U.S. government. I think you and I would agree, or most people would agree, one of the most important functions, lawful functions of the government is this certification process of saying, Joe Biden won the presidency. In fact, he got all the electoral votes he needed. It was 306 to 232 for Trump. So the Congress, as specified in law and Constitution, made him president. Since that time, in fact, before that time, Trump has been trying to say, oh, if I lose, the election is rigged against me. And then when he lost, saying, no, he really won. But that is a subversion of democracy. The January 6th committee, I'm sorry to be so long, Lawrence, has said this is a crime. A judge earlier this week said it's likely a crime. If you look at the law and the history of this law, go back 100 years, and it was a Chief Justice named Taft, who'd been president, who said, if this clearly is a crime, if it involves dishonesty and trickery, and of course that defines the Trump actions on this.
The Ginny Thomas texts that you have revealed are exclusively going back and forth between Mark Meadows and Virginia Thomas. We see Jared Kushner's name being mentioned in there. Jared Kushner clearly going to be asked by the committee, what about your communications with Virginia Thomas? And so there's conceivably several other people within the Trump White House who will have these kinds of communications with Virginia Thomas that may or may not at some point be revealed.
That indeed, Bob Costa and I checked on Jared and talked to a spokesman for him and indicated he didn't recall getting anything on this. So we'll see. But this, as you know so well, this is about the perception of the honest functioning of government, all branches. And this is, as my colleague Bob Costa calls it, a dangerous, looming entanglement between Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife, and it needs to be explained. We have a system, thank God, as Ben Bradley, the former editor of the Post, used to always say, the truth emerges. Sometimes it takes a long time. I think it will once again take a long time.